So the education for today is for Integrity Capital is what does the lender need? And this is specifically for the front end side of the business, meaning that on the phase one or loan associate side, um, you know, we've are addressing this because a lot of times, the lender might not have enough information or that not understand. And so really the objective here is to go through and just say, what really does the lender need to see in order to make a decision? Because what you have to try to understand is that lenders don't have the bandwidth in many instances to have the patience to go through a bunch of stuff. And so what they want to see is just some, overview that gives them all the things that they care about in order to make a decision of whether they want to proceed or not. So part of our job in providing stuff to the lender on the front end of this is to give them the appropriate decision information so that we can just quickly either get them to a yes or quickly get them to a no. And so that's my hope and my objective today. So the first one is overview. When a lender's looking at a deal, they just want to kind of say, give me sort of a snapshot of what it is that we're looking at. And what I'm doing here is trying to give just some snapshots of what to focus on when you're trying to do an overview. The first thing is, are they buying versus refinancing? So that's a good thing for them to know, okay, is this an acquisition or just a refinance? The other thing that they're going to want to know is what's the asset type or business type that we're talking about? Is it an apartment complex or self-storage? Is it a business acquisition, et cetera? The other things in that overview that they're probably going to want to see are just timelines. When do they need to close? And then values is, what's the purchase price or how much do you think it's worth, for this transaction? And then the final thing is just construction versus existing. Is this a building that's already in place or is this something that we need to build? And so when you're giving an overview, there certainly could be some other elements to add, but I wanted to just give some bare bones as to what the overview is for the particular transaction. And so those are the things: buying versus refinancing, the asset or business type, timelines and values, and then just construction versus existing. Does that make sense? Or any questions on that at all?
No.
Okay. The other thing is the individual / the entity. So, we're talking about giving them information about what is the net worth of the client. And then furthermore than that, I think a lot of times what they really want to see is what is the liquidity position? How much cash does this individual have or individuals, so that they get a baseline to say, okay, this person has a lot of cash or no cash. And so that gives them a good framework for the individual and or entity. The other thing is the experience. So how much experience do they have? Have they done this before 5 or 6 times, or is this the very first time that they're trying to, perform this transaction? So you want to give them a little bit of background on the person and the experience. The name and the ownership, what is the ownership and the name of the individual? Percentage wise, if there's an LLC or a corp, what is the percentage of ownership that they have within the framework of this? So again, that just kind of gives them an overview of the individual. So I'll pause there for a second. Any comments? If you feel like there's something else, by the way, to chime in, just feel free as well.
No, I think it's on the experience piece. I think it's always good to have it in the other person's writing, though, as far as like a bio, just because, they can speak to it better than just hey, how many times have you done this, or is this, how long have you been in the industry? And giving a quick answer, a bio seems to go a long way.
Yeah, agreed, Tom. One of the things we're going to be looking at doing, and I've already done it twice, is actually doing a recording. So we actually interview the individuals and their background, and so that the lender actually gets a real human kind of contact experience for them, these individuals. So it's gone over really, really well. So the next thing is the asset. So, what's the location? Obviously, the size of the property, square footage wise, and then the land, how much, acreage do they have? The condition of the building, if there is one. Is it old and dilapidated, or is it a newer renovated building? How many units are there? If it's an apartment complex, if it's self-storage, you want to know, what the unit mix probably is for the, an apartment complex. Are they one bedroom, one bath? Is it 2 bedroom, 1 baths? Self-storage, what are the sizes of the units? So you want to give them some of the metric pieces of the actual asset itself. What's the occupancy of that particular asset as well? So just on the asset front, those are some of the things that are helpful for them, because again, they can start calculating and saying, okay, there's X amount of units, and this is the price per unit, and this is the price per foot. And so it just gives them some point of reference to understand. So any thoughts, comments, clarifications on the asset section at all?
I'm good.
Okay, great.
One thing on asset that and I guess it kind of goes under property, like size and whatnot, but just number of parcels, just to out the gate, just to get a better idea of like what's all included. I think that's one that pops up, and especially once we get to title, and if we have like I guess it's it comes up later on, but if we out the gate can confirm like how many parcels and all that good stuff, it's good to have.
Yeah, that's good. It's a really good point. Yeah, just additional parcels that are definitely involved. Deal points. Again, what's the purchase price? What's the value that you think it's worth? Maybe even why you think it's worth that. Just something to think through. Loan to value that they're looking for, loan to cost is a big one for them. The terms that they want, 25-year amortization, fixed for 5 years, and this is the rate we're looking for. Lenders like to see, like, what are you asking for? So it's not just the deal points, but what do you want? And that just helps flush some people out. And then sources and uses. You want to have some breakdown of, here's the sources we're looking for, and then here's how those will get used, especially if it's a construction, type of project. So you just want to give them some deal points, some things to reference as they go through it. Cash flow is pretty straightforward. It's just giving them the individual cash flow, showing them that it can debt service on its own. And then you also globally want to cash flow it, just to say, okay, they service globally as well. They have the capacity or not to service that particular deal. And then the final thing is just hair. Is there any issues that you see on the deal? Sometimes people just say, well, you don't ever want to address that, but that's really not our philosophy. We want to address whatever the issue is, and then we want to have 1 or 2 thoughts as to how we can mitigate that particular issue. And so it's just really important that we give the lender, substantive information. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. This could all be done on 1 page, but we want to give them enough information for them to really quickly say, it's just not something that we want to do, or this is, right down the fairway. And you'll just find that it'll be so much more productive when you're sending out a project to a lender. If there's construction, you want to try to give them enough about, like, how the budget's going to flow, and so on and so forth. And if you're dealing with a single tenant, you might want to have something with respect to the strength of the tenant and who they are, just so they can get some comfort level on that particular group. So there's not a ton here, but I do think it's important for us to address it. And so I just wanted to bring that up here today. So any thoughts or feedback on this education piece at all?
A question. So when you're determining the value, like to, be able to provide for the lender, does that the client's value, or how do you guys go about, getting the value for the property without an appraisal, I should say?
It's a great question. I'll chime into this. So, typically, Lana, you're going to get that from a couple of different areas. Number one is if they, if you talk to another commercial broker, and maybe they provide you some comps that substantiates what they think it's worth. That's one of the particular ways we can do it, is just, pulling comps. And I think, if you look at deals enough, you could get a pretty good sense for, like, if that number they're giving you per foot or is out of whack or per unit. And so I think some of that is just, experience. But I would say, brokers are definitely a good source. And then just your market knowledge, of things that have traded and, what is selling. And so that's usually a pretty good gauge, I guess, to say, because a lot of people say, hey, I think it's worth, $2 million, and, they're way off. They just don't know, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, I think it's important to go with the what do you think it's worth, and after they give the answer, to ask why. And if they say, well, it's because I'd really like it to be worth that, then that's
Exactly.
not probably the best answer. But if they say, well, my buddy's a realtor and he pulled comparables, and that's what we think per square foot and age, it's like, oh, well, that sounds like you did some research. So yeah, I think it's kind of, start with them because they know their property best, but verify where, why they think so.
Yeah, agreed. So does that kind of answer your question a little bit?
Yes.
I think Dan is joining us right at the end of it. So Dan had some home complications.
Oh, no.
Dan, I was just telling him he had a few home complications that she had to run home to. So
yeah, sorry if I'm a distraction, guys. He might come any minute too.
you're totally fine.